All right, so in section 3, we're looking at matrix multiplication, which is review from last year as well. We've done this before, so should look familiar once we get going on it. This is our first problem. And when we were looking at dimensions yesterday, what number came first, the rows or the columns? The rows. So that is also going to happen when we multiply. The first matrix, we're going to be looking at rows, so I'd like you to circle them. And the second one, we look at columns. That will always be that way. So I want you to circle them right away whenever you do one of these so that you don't mix them up and do them backwards. So looking at this problem, what we're going to do in order to find each of the terms is we have to multiply the first number times the first number and the second number times the second number and then add them together. So I'm going to show you the work. We're going to make this pretty large matrix here, and then we're going to have the simplified version. You don't have to have the long explanation work one ever, but we're just going to go through it once so that you can look back and figure out how to do this. So this is the how-to on how to get these numbers. Question? No, I don't have to show her. All right, so to find the first number, which is in the first row, first column, that's what we use over here. We use the first row, first column. So we need to take, in those groups of 2, we need to take the first number times the first number. So 2 times 2, and we will add it to the second number times the second number. Oops, -3. Okay, so when we add those together, what do we get? 4. So that is truly your first number. All right, if we want the number right below that, which is in the second row, first column, we need the second row and first column. So we take the first number times the first number, and we will add it to the second number times the second number. So we've got -6 plus -3, correct? So that would be -9. Let me write that a little bit more clear since my typo was. All right. If we want to find the one underneath that, what am I going to have to use?
4 times 2 plus 5 times 3.
So the bottom row, first column. So 4 times 2, and so what would that be?
-3.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now we're finding all of the numbers in the second column. So we're always going to be using those 2 numbers. So to find the one in the first row at the top, we'll take 2 and 0 with the 1 and the 0. So we've got 2 times 1 plus 0 times 0, which gives you 2. Making sense? Seeing the pattern? Okay. Well, if we want this next number, which is in the second row, we use the second row. So -3 times 1 and 1 times 0. And then the bottom row with the second column, 4 times 1 plus 5 times 0. I get 4. Questions? So there's not really any work to show because I'm not requiring you to show this step right here. So I'm just looking for the answer. Just make sure you're organizing it well. So let's try one more before we look at one last idea. So the first thing you always want to do when you're multiplying matrices is to circle the rows and the columns. Always rows on the first one, columns on the second one. All right. So tell me what my first number will be. 3. Yes. -1 times -3 and 5 times 0. What about the one to the right of that? Right here. -3. What about the one in this corner? Okay, let's go through this. What are we multiplying? 3 times -3 and -4 times 5.
-26. -29.
Okay. 7th time is a charm, right? Okay. Next one. This is 9, yes. 3 times 3 and -4 times 0. Questions on that? All right, so the last thing we have is what size matrices we can multiply together. So I'd like you to draw these two matrices, and they just have letters in there because it doesn't matter what the numbers are, but the size of the matrix has to match on certain numbers. So the first one is a 3 by 2. Remember, it's rows and then columns. And then the second one is a 2 by 4. So in order for us to be able to multiply, those two numbers in those spots need to be the same. The reason is if we circle these, which we should, these groups of numbers that we're circling have to be the same size. So they're 2 numbers each, which matches up with the other 2 numbers. So we always need that to be the same. We can't take 3 numbers and multiply them by 2 numbers. We need to have the same amount.
But if we count the J and the N of that one, we can do it.
Now the outside numbers help us to figure out what our answer is going to be. So the outside numbers tell you what the dimensions are of your answer. So our matrix that we get for an answer here will have 3 rows and 4 columns. So you'll automatically know how many you're going to get in your answer by those outside 2 numbers. Questions?